just going to have to double check that here. I was speaking with Andre as well, and he was very cute.
Okay.
I told him, please come on and join us. We are now live.
Very good.
Hello, my name is.
Thank you for having me, Dept. Thank you very much for having me on your program.
Yeah, I'd love to introduce you a little bit before we get into it. I'm just so excited to have you here. I'm so grateful for this opportunity. I'm Hetal, and really part of an ongoing initiative to support the mental well-being of our community. We've launched a series, and together with us is Datuk Andrew Lim Tatt Keong. He has told me to call him Andrew, but we are Asian. It is impossible for me to do this. I will call you.
I'm too young to be a Datuk, actually.
Too young to be Datuk.
Too young to be a Datuk.
Too young to be a Datuk.
You can leave all the honorifics alone, and just call our names.
Yeah, you were very cute about it earlier. You were saying that this is only for the government. This doesn't exist.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
we only do honorifics on official functions.
Right. And so a little background, very brief background about you, and then we'd love to get into who you are and where you've come from. Datuk Lim, or Mr. Lim, is he is the executive chairman of GAMA Supermarket and Department Store. He's also very famously known for causing a lot of traffic in Jalan Tengku Abdul Rahman because
I'm so sorry.
Wonderful property called Sogo. This is where majority.
I apologize for the traffic.
No, you don't. No, you don't. This is typically where majority of the strikes in Malaysia begin and end. Not because of Sogo, but because it just seems to be the perfect place for hustle and bustle. Anyone who has been to Malaysia and doesn't know what Sogo is, or even Globe Silk Store for that matter, it is said that you have not yet been to Malaysia. So Datuk Andrew Lim, Mr. Lim is also holding a very important position now in this space of this interview as the president of the Batu Road Retails Association, or BARA, the very famous strip of Jalan Tengku Abdul Rahman in Malaysia. Before we get into anything else, please tell us a little bit about you as a human being.
Well, before we do that, I just want to tell you a bit about BARA. In fact, we were toying with the idea of calling it Batu Road Association. The short form would have been BRA. So I think your esteemed father said, no. I think it's better we call it BARA.
Yeah, so, I was actually looking at it. I was like, how did you get? Okay. Then I looked at it. I was like, obviously you can't.
Road Retailers Association. Then it's more acceptable rather than BRA.
Yes.
Well, Hetal, I mean, thank you very much for having me on your program. I think number one, I just want to tell you that I started life as a reporter. I was actually a journalist with the Straits Echo in Penang, and I left as a sub-editor before I went over to UK to do my law studies. I'm a barrister. I'm a barrister from Middle Temple, and I've been in practice for 20 years before I became a retailer. I'm actually an accidental retailer. Your father, your brothers, they are the real retailers in Batu Road. I just accidentally came into this role. And of course, I've been able to get along very well, especially with your father. And somehow, somewhere along the line, I was an accidental president. Somebody else didn't want the job, so at the end of the day, it just fell on my lap. So I am basically I'm actually a lawyer, but an accidental retailer, an accidental president of BARA. That's my background.
Yeah. What can you say about accidents? You talk about a lot of accidents that have happened in your life.
I think the positive way of looking at it is fortuitions.
Sorry?
Or serendipity.
Serendipity.
The word is serendipity.
Yes.
Something happened accidentally, and it turned out to be very positive, and it turned out to be very well. So I think that's the story of my life.
Yeah.
I should be just a practicing lawyer somewhere in Penang, and just dealing with divorce cases and civil claims, and probably some kind of banking law and corporate work. That's my background. Yes.
So from being a reporter to being in the legal industry to being in retail, And obviously you would have carried your skill set across all of that as well.
It helps. It helps. I think being a journalist and also being a lawyer helps to actually connect with people, and you get to understand the issues and the concerns more intimately. But I had good advisors. I mean, your father was a very good advisor too. And he always took me under his arm, and then he kept telling me about the history of Batu Road, and he's actually the real repository of the history of Batu Road. So I told Satish Doshi, you must write. Then he said, I mean, who is going to write for me? I said, okay, we'll find you a ghost writer. Now I know who to appoint. I'll appoint you to write for him.
You know what they say about working in the family business, right?
I know, it's very difficult.
Odds, and so have my
I don't want to tell you what Kitan tells me about his difficulties.
Okay, so could you share one skill set that doesn't escape regardless of the industry that you're in? So you've carried a couple of professions under your belt. What is one skill that is universal, that is non-negotiable, and you have to have it? And it helps you.
All of us have hard skills. I mean, all of us have got some technical expertise that we are very proud of, and we're very adept with. But I think the universal skill that we must have is that we must be people-centric. It's the soft skills. So you can be very successful even if you are uneducated, but you have people skills, and you know how to work with people, you get along. And at the end of the day, you'll do very well.
Right. And what is it about
leading skill?
What is it about people skills? What is the depth of people skills that you're talking about? What is it at the core of people skills that one must have?
Well, basically, I like quoting Sir Richard Branson. He always says, we are in business to make our customers' lives better. So I think that says it all. I mean, your people skill is to how to make your friends' life better, your family members' life better, or in our case, our GAMA members, our so-called members, how to make their lives better. Make it easier, make it more convenient, give them the best deal they can get. Certainly must give them the merchandise that is fit for the purpose.
Right.
A lot of retailers, they cheat on that. And at the end of the day, the whole thing falls apart after 3 days you buy it. I mean, it's cheap, but it doesn't suit the purpose for which it was sold to you for.
Yeah. Well, that was really wonderfully said. I've actually not heard anybody yet so far being able to articulate what people skills actually mean in terms of intention. Yeah.
People skills, people skills, people skills.
All right, got it. And so you have obviously been successful with everything that you have done, from being a reporter to being in the legal industry to being in a retail space, even though it's all accidental. So is this because of luck?
I'm chuckling here because you don't know all my failures. So, okay. There's no successful human being in this life without having go through his or her own fair share of failures. I think that's point number one. Yeah. Point number two, I think the excitement in life is that you don't know what is going to happen around the corner. So although I call myself an accidental retailer or accidental president of bar, but all these are, to me, very happy occasions. And I mean, I've enjoyed all these stages or all these roles that I've played and am still playing. And I wouldn't have it any other way. I don't know what's going to happen around the corner. I do not know what's going to happen after this COVID-19 crisis is over, for example.
Yeah.
I think it'll be a new normal. I think we retailers must up our game. I think we have got to work very closely with the authorities. I think we've got to work with our GAMA members, SOCO members, and all our staff and managers. They've been wonderful to actually let her bring about a higher level of public safety. Right. Because this is not going to go away until a vaccine is created. And a vaccine will only be created, either end of this year or beginning of next year. Trials are happening, but I think there's no silver bullet. Yeah. There's no hydrochloroquine chlorine solution which President Donald Trump is pushing.
Right. And, when you talk about enjoying events that are around the corner and you have no visibility towards it, I just wanted to bring in some statistics. Last year, or the year before, actually, 2017, 2018, if I'm not wrong, about 30% of Malaysians were found to have very high levels of depression, stress, and anxiety. Majority of it is because of the level of stress and demands of the world upon them, and also the level of stress and demands from inside of them. And part of it is because of the fear of unknown, fear of uncertainty, and fear of not being able to be in control. Yet, when I speak to you, that is exactly what you're enjoying. What is a mental frame or mental state or a way to think that actually helps you to enjoy situations where you could be in extreme danger potentially? What is one thing that is in here as you experience this thriller movie?
Now, let's just give some background to that. I mean, right now in New York State and New York City is the ground zero of COVID-19 epidemic or pandemic in America. It's happening now. So what does Andrew Cuomo, the governor, do? He actually asks for professional health experts to volunteer to man telephones to actually talk to people who are depressed or afraid or anxious. So that's how they actually, in more advanced countries, they prioritize your mental health. In this country, in Malaysia, once you have got a psychological problem, i.e. you are depressed, i.e. you have a phobia, i.e. you're extremely anxious, you have panic attacks, they think you are like mad, you need psychiatric help. But actually, no, there is a middle ground where people need just to be assured and assuaged of their psychological anxieties. Now, in Malaysia, we are missing that. We don't have many psychologists, clinical psychologists, social psychologists being able to help our Malaysian people. I mean, we have the befrienders, but we don't have enough people to actually help our citizens think through and think out of their mental conundrums. That's point number one. Point number two, we have psychiatrists in our hospitals, but they are not the people who will deal with your everyday, daily depression problems. They are there to treat you when you have got a physical, mental problem, i.e. your chemical balances are all wrong. They will then drug you and recalibrate your mental chemicals, your mind chemicals, so that they give you, say, estrogen, not estrogen, they give you endorphins, or they give you serotonin for you to balance your mental state, for example, if you are too depressed. But they cannot solve or help you think through your personal problems. So I think for mental health, that part in Malaysia should be emphasized by our National Health Service, but also by private and semi-private hospitals. I think that's point number one.
I think you might fall into something accidental, because I might get your help I might get your help since you're so articulate and so knowledgeable about it. I'm actually shocked at how much you know about it.
I'll tell you, all law students and all medical students, all law students and all medical students go through exam phobias.
Absolutely.
So I went through mine at university, because you've got so much to study and you don't know whether you can pass the bloody thing, excuse the expression. And you are scared, stiff, and at the end of the day, you still have to go through it. And then you go through it, and sometimes you come up mentally scarred.
Oh, for sure. So, you might end up.
That's why medical students and law students are great drinkers. You have to drink a lot of alcohol to get us through.
Correct.
I mean, I had to. I'm not sure about others, but I had to go. I picked up my drinking habit in order to handle, my exam phobias during those 4 or 5 years that I was studying law. So we know what it is like to have a phobia. We know how it is like to go through, extreme stress and anxiety because of these drop dead examinations we had to go through in the UK. I mean, nowadays, of course, they do assignments, coursework, and it's distributed over a period of time. But in those days, and I'm sure now there are still some universities and some systems that actually have drop dead exams at the end of the year. So I know these kind of problems. So therefore, the way that I deal with it is to actually take my mind off whatever is stressful. I mean, like now, for example, I mean, I have got 1,000 employees and their salaries to take care of, and there's zero business, and we still have to pay because it's a government directive. But I leave that all alone. I'm talking to Hital Doshi, and I'm having a great time. I'm having a great time talking to Satish Doshi's daughter.
Okay. All right. And
the idea is to take your mind off by having an equally absorbing mental activity that is not the mental activity that is causing you the stress.
That's wonderfully said. Just focusing on what, being present and putting that presence into something that you're going to enjoy potentially.
Yes.
This
the way your mind rests.
This might be a bit of a personal question, and I'm sure you wouldn't mind. But you can just say pass if you don't want to talk about it. What was the single most stressful situation that you've ever experienced in your life?
It was my first year at university. I was going through my first year, and it was coming up to my exams. And and this was at the University of Wales and Cardiff College of Law, and they had a professional psychologist. They call him student counselor, and she has an office. It's on campus, and you can just make an appointment. You go there and you just talk to her. And I had a chat with her for about 15-20 minutes, and she had managed to actually pinpoint where I'm having this exam phobia, where I'm having my extreme distress, and she gave me pointers on how to deal with it.
Wow.
So at the end of the day, it was free. It was free for students. Now, I don't see that at our universities in Malaysia. We should have them.
What did she point towards? Where was the anxiety coming from, and what struck you the most in that conversation?
I was on my father's scholarship. I was there, and he was supporting me, and he was financing everything. And I was so afraid that I failed and that I wasted his money. That was what was more fearful to me than actually facing the exam. The exam is just an exam.
Did you ever tell him? Did you ever tell him that?
No, I didn't tell him until his dying day. I didn't share that with him. But what I'm trying to say is that you may think you're afraid of something, but actually that is not the cause of what you are fearful of. Yeah. It's actually some other matter that you're afraid of, but your mind doesn't connect because you're in a subjective position. You need to have a professional counselor, a trained psychologist to actually help move your mind over these issues and then to connect with what is actually the problem. And once you understand that, you release yourself.
Just wanted to go a little deeper if possible.
Yes.
Why did you not have that conversation with your dad? And
in those days, fathers don't talk to you. No, nobody. Fathers are fathers, they set down the rules and they order you to comply, and then they don't have a meaningful exchange. That is the methodology of child raising of the previous generation.
Yeah, and what was that methodology? Just command and control, is it?
No, it is like, I'm the elder and I know best. Right. And I have to tell you what you have to do in your best interest, and you should follow. Now, It is not a wrong thing, but I think it doesn't engage the child or the next generation with a meaningful exchange. I think nowadays, the internet generation, you need to know why.
Yeah.
In our generation, we are not told why. They
Yeah.
just go do this. That's it.
I'd like to know if you tried to have a conversation with your dad about it, what do you
Yes.
think might surprise you about something he would say? What do you think he would have said?
I think I would have been surprised that I would have been surprised if he didn't feel so concerned or so caring about me. I'm sure he felt concerned. I'm sure he worried. I'm sure he was also anxious that I don't turn out to be a bangsat. Like, in being a bangsat is like
Yeah. And
failure.
and
But
and
the
you
point is, in those days, that generation of people are not trained or are not encouraged to be forthcoming and sharing and especially sharing feelings.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah. And I just really like to follow on that line. Is it
Yes,
different for a son compared to a daughter for the
I tell
father?
you, I tell you, daughters have much better deals with their fathers than sons. I tell you that.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
terrible.
I'm sure Kitan has got a harder time with your esteemed father than your good self.
Anytime, anytime, anytime,
Yeah, there
anytime.
you are.
Yeah,
The
anytime.
pressures are greater, and
Yeah,
I think fathers now feel that they have got to pressurize their sons to do much better than what they
yeah.
have.
And uncle, you have a son, right? You
Yes,
have
I do.
one son,
Yes,
Andre. And
yes.
have you ever had a very deep, meaningful conversation about what he might be going through or what you might be going through?
I think we talk all the time, but I think the relationship is over a long-term period. I think the parameters that you set from the very beginning, actually sets the tone of the entire relationship.
What does
So
that
I'm basically a libertarian. So I'm happy to allow everyone, not only my children, but everyone to actually develop according to their own strengths and according to their own wishes. So
right?
it is different from the old days. The old days they've got set ideas,
Yeah. What
right?
is
They've got
something
set ideas.
that what is something that you have openly told your daughter that you have yet to openly tell your son, maybe?
Oh, I think I've treated them both equally. I think my method of communication as well as my messages when I'm communicating have been the same for both of them. And basically, it's nowadays is again in those days, women and men had different treatments from their parents.
Yeah.
Nowadays, if you were to treat your daughters different from your sons, I tell you, your daughters will crucify you.
I'm just going to challenge you a little bit. Yet you said earlier that daughters are a better deal. So if Andre were here,
Yes,
what would he say about the way that he's treated as a boy compared
yes,
to the way the sister is
yes.
treated? Because there's always that difference, you know what I mean? And I
I
think
think
what I'm trying to
yes.
do now, without being too painful or being annoying, is that
Sure,
I think it's quite valuable for men to also have that experience
sure,
or vulnerability from their fathers
sure,
that may not always be there. You
sure.
could be very different. I'm sure, even my dad is very liberal as much as he can be.
Indeed,
There's a clear difference. There's a clear difference.
of course. But you see, the thing is that expectations. I think Warren Buffett always said the most important thing in human relationship. He was talking about himself and his wife and all that. He was asked a question when in a general meeting at Omaha. One of his shareholders asked him, Mr. Warren Buffett, what is the secret of a successful marriage? And that's an issue in the States. I think 1 in 2 marriages in the States fail and end up in divorce. So what Warren Buffett said was expectation. I think we have placed greater expectations on sons. It's an Asian thing. Whereas now we are less likely to place high expectation on daughters. So the amount of psychological pressure, as it were, would be different on a son vis-a-vis on a daughter. So those are I think in general terms, the basic difference between
You're
treating sons and treating daughters.
yeah.
Hmm.
You're
And, it,
amazing.
and it's very important for your mental health and
Isn't it?
happiness.
Isn't it? Yeah, because the
Yes.
rate of suicide and the rate of depression, anxiety is a little bit higher for men, and you would see more violent ways of ending their lives, so to speak, when it comes to difficult times, more violent ways for men than for women. We won't go into too much of that, but I just wanted to thank you so much for allowing me to talk about something so personal and getting to a space of speaking about fathers and sons, or men in general with regards to mental health. It's just wonderful to be able to have such open conversations with someone like you.
I can be open with you because I'm Uncle Andrew. I may be talking to you in a different way. But the important thing is this, to encapsulate this, you should interview the befrienders. They're doing a good job. The befrienders are doing a good job as a safety valve for people who are extremely depressed, suicidal, or even those who are just near there but not there yet, for them to actually talk to somebody to actually feel relief.
I will definitely do that. We are very much in contact, so to speak, as well. We're part of a community too. But most certainly, I think it's very challenging time for them right now. So just giving them a little bit of space and time before we get.
And at the end of the day, there must be a change in public policy. Malaysia as a nation should highlight psychological happiness. And we need this kind of a whole coterie, a whole profession of psychologists to actually help our people through their anxiety.
Right.
This is what we are lacking in Malaysia.
Yeah, and serendipity might take you to lead some of these things going forward as well. I will hold you to that, and you're absolutely correct.
We're happy to advise.
Yes, until policy doesn't change, we're just going to keep talking.
Sure.
But yes, okay. So on to a couple of things. With regards to your presidentship or presidency as for the BARA of the Retail Association of Batu.
Batu Road Retailers.
Sorry?
Batu Road Retailers Association.
Batu Road Retailers Association, apologize for that. What is the psychological state of the retailers that you know of?
Basically, we're all worried. I mean, we are worried for the retail industry as a whole, and we are worried for the Batu Road retailers in particular. And what we are worried about? We are worried about when the MCO is over. How will business return? In what form was we make our safety precautions so that our customers are safe? And those are the things that at this point in time is going through everybody's head. And I'm glad that Selangor has banned Ramadan Bazaar or have not allowed it. Basically, that is actually too much closeness, too much proximity. Maybe Kuala Lumpur should do the same. But on the other hand, a lot of small retail players are looking forward to Ramadan bazaars. So that is something that is an economic imperative that you've got to measure and trade off against a safety imperative.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So I have no answers on that. I think the authorities have to decide. But the important thing must be after the MCO is over and Ramadan Raya is around the corner. Raya is on the 25th of May. Ramadan begins on the 25th of April. So there will be a lot of customers, a lot of our Malay customers coming to shop along Batu Road.
Okay.
So how do we measure that, and how do we make it safe for everyone?
Right. Absolutely. I mean, that's definitely one of the biggest events or biggest revenue generators for Jalanta specifically, and of course Malaysia as well. And so that's going to be a huge impact to all of you. Just wanted to know as well. I think earlier when we were having a conversation, I thought you put it really well. So maybe I'll ask for the benefit of people who are listening as well. It's not COVID-19 only on its own entirety that has disrupted the retailers. This has been going on for at least about 5, 7, maybe even 10 years. where retailers were being disrupted, not necessarily by other retailers, but by technology, e-commerce platforms. So can you tell us a little bit about why people don't move quickly with regards to sense making? So they're already sensing impending danger, but we may not be moving as quickly to get to a place that we are safe and thriving. Why do we not do that as human beings?
We normally fight the previous war. We do not fight the war that's coming, because our mind, we can't wrap it around what is coming, because we don't know the parameters of what's the next problem. I mean, we can guess at it, we can estimate it, we do our best judgment, and we try to deal with it as best we can. But basically, you're always fighting the last war. You're not fighting the war that's coming. And this COVID-19 virus is actually a war against a very infectious virus. We at first thought it was just like an influenza. But influenza doesn't kill people like this. They just don't drown in their own fluids in their lungs. So this is actually an extreme form of coronavirus that's now facing our country. So a lot of our rakyat do not realize that, because it's invisible, you see. So we are not able to fight that war with everybody's cooperation as we should, because we are fighting the previous war. We think this is an influenza. It might be in case of fever and flu. Some people will die, but it is not known what is actually happening. This is actually a more virulent strain of virus.
Yeah. What I meant was, why did the retailers specifically, why did we not transform quickly enough, even though it's already about 10 years ago, where you could see that there was a threat with regards to disruption? COVID-19 is definitely a big threat. But before this, there were already a lot of signals. So why have we not been transforming quickly? You were talking about, was it intellectually and viscerally, right? You were talking tell me a little bit about that. So would you like to?
No, I think the challenges to Malaysian retail would actually be from the e-commerce dimension. We know intellectually that now all our youngsters, I mean, young people like you, the millennials, I call them the internet generation of human beings. You're all living in your handphone. Mark my word, you're not living with a handphone, but you're living inside your handphone. If you were to lose your handphone, there's more important to you than actually losing money or losing other things. So what is happening is, intellectually, all the retailers in Bara recognize that a mind shift has occurred. A massive mind shift has occurred into our customer base. But viscerally, we don't experience it. So we are still doing the same brick and mortar sales and promotions, marketing plans, and so on and so forth, that doesn't connect with the internet generation.
Right.
So that's where I was coming from. So 10 years ago, we were using PCs, we were using laptops, but handheld devices wasn't yet so enabled. Because you didn't have the computing power. Then subsequently, the chip makers started making more and more powerful chips. So now you are holding a supercomputer in your hand. And with 5G, you have super connectivity.
Right.
So your enablement is now via your handheld device.
Yes, I think that's amazing that you have said we don't live. What is it? We don't live
with your handphone.
We live in
your father and I. We live with a handphone.
But I beg to differ. I've seen a lot of the elderly folks.
Maybe he's got more time now to dwell into it. But Satish Doshi, I know, is actually only using his handphone. But the point is this: you will buy things, you will communicate with people, you will express yourself, you will actually record your entire details of your wonderful life on your hand.
Correct. And you talked
as a matter of habit, buying patterns must go into the handphones.
Absolutely.
It's a natural thing.
wanted to share with you, there was a research done with university students in the US. And were given a choice: do they want to live without their handphone, or do they want to live without food for the day? They actually chose to live without food for the day.
Yeah, you can survive without food for a day.
Yeah, they decided that the phone was more important for that particular day. And also, you were talking about intellectually, and I think this is a very important point, that intellectually we can already make sense that there is a big change that is in front of us, but viscerally we don't really take that plunge, or we don't have that urgency to make that move as well. And with regards to the retailers right now, obviously revenue, and in Straits Times had reported revenues would have plunged by up to 90%, and for some even 100%, not 100% sure. So what are the retailers hoping to do in these times? So what are some of the things that have come up, and as a president, what are some of the things that you're supporting them with?
I think nationally we have got to recognize that this is a destruction of consumer demand. And the MCO is a total destruction of consumer demand. I mean, if you're going to buy a wedding ring, you're not going to buy it now. If you're going to buy new clothes for Raya, you may not even want to buy new clothes for Raya, because you don't know what is going to happen down the road. So in times of anxiety and fear, people will just stop spending. So even after the MCO is over, the post-MCO period will also mean a fall in consumer demand. It is actually a destruction of consumer demand. So all the advanced countries, USA, Japan, Britain, Europe, they've taken cognizance of that. So Japan has just announced a $1 trillion stimulus plan. In the UK, they subsidize 75% of your salaries and wages, regardless of whether you're self-employed or whether you're just an employee.
Right.
So basically what they are trying to do is they're trying to let us stabilize and support all the pillars of commerce, or all the entities of commerce, so that at the end, when COVID-19 is over, they will still have a viable economy, so that the recovery is V-shaped and is not a long, elongated U-shaped recovery.
Right.
So that is where we as a country are in a conundrum. Our oil and gas prices have fallen, so Petronas income is very low. We have very little by way of surplus reserves. Our forex reserves is only about 105 billion US dollars. So that is where we are now facing a government that wants to support the rakyat, but is unable to, because you don't have the money.
Right. Okay. And
so,
what are...
So in Philippines, what they've done is they have said very publicly, we will ramp up national borrowing. They actually used to borrow up to 70% of their GDP. They have cut it down to 41% of their GDP. And I think the Filipino Secretary of Finance said, we don't mind now ramping it up again to 70% of GDP. That's what it means. Because we have to save the Filipino people.
Right.
The ratings of our country is secondary now to actually let us saving the businesses, the small, medium enterprises, the ordinary rakyat of their country. And at the end of the COVID-19, they still want to have a viable economy, not a devastated one.
Right, and not a devastated one, a viable one. And what are 3 things that you're doing as the president of the Retailers Association? I keep forgetting the whole format of it. BARA, yes. What are 3 things that you're hoping to do in your presidency?
Prior to all this medical crisis, we were actually working very closely with the Ministry of Tourism to actually promote Batu Road as a heritage area.
Right.
Actually, Dr. Mahathir had always said, he wrote in his book, when he was young, he used to go to Batu Road, and he used to do his Raya shopping there. And that was one of the reasons why he was the one who established Complex Soho. It was actually a joint venture between Pernas 30% and the Sogo Corporation of Japan 70%, because he wanted to rejuvenate Batu Road, and he wanted to make Malaysia a shopping paradise, because he recognized, and all kudos to Dr. Mahathir, that the retail and services center must be a prime driver of an advanced economy.
Right.
Apart from oil and gas, the second driver for your economy should be the hospitality, the retail, they call it the services. So he was already moving towards that in the 80s. Right. And that's why we are here today. That's why Complex Sogo was built. And that's why we have a presence now in Batu Road. So we were actually working with the ministry to actually make Batu Road a heritage shopping area where all the best of our Malaysian cultures, whether it's Kelantanese, Wayang Kulit, or whether it's Ronggeng, or whether it's Baba Nunya from Penang, would all be centered along Batu Road. So those were the plans, and I think it would have taken off. It would have been a tourist destination.
Right. Okay. So one of the things that you're doing is to turn it into a heritage area of sorts. What are two other things that you do?
Heritage Street, for example.
Heritage Street. And what are maybe one or two things that you're doing with regards to supporting the retailers now with the loss of revenue? I'm not saying that it's all your job, but are there one or two things that the community is doing together as retailers?
We are lobbying together with the Malaysian Retailers Association. We're lobbying together with the Malaysian Retailers Chain Association, MRCA and MRA. We're all working together to actually explain to the government what we need.
And what is it?
This difficult medical crisis.
What is the most important thing that all the retailers need at this point in time?
Direct financial subsidy. If you can, say for example, if you can postpone income tax payments, if you can postpone quit rent assessment and all those kind of statutory payments for a period of time, a moratorium, like you are now allowing loan borrowers a moratorium of 6 months, that would help the cash flow problem. Because this MCO must finish. Even assuming that in 2 weeks' time, I mean, at the end of 14th of April, they extend 2 more weeks. I'm sure they will. I mean, they've been hinting, and I've got a visceral feeling that they're going to extend for 2 months. But it must end. And after it ends, then consumer sentiment for it to recover will take several months, if not even not a year after.
Yeah, and just in line with what you were saying about, sometimes we fight the old war and not the upcoming war. So by asking for direct financial subsidies, is that what you call it?
Yes, direct financial subsidies.
So that is the old war.
Our workers, the money can go straight. 75% of wages and salaries of whoever is on our payroll. Please help pay them.
So that would be the current war that you are facing. What about the direct help that you need with regards to the upcoming war, which is, like you say, the destruction of consumer demands? Do you need any support in that? And if at all, what is the one thing that can help all the retailers to face the new war, not just the current war?
I think we need to trust that the government is doing what they should do. Right now, which is to track, contain, and eliminate the virus. Right now, we don't see mass testing, for example. So you do not know who is a sufferer, you do not know who is a carrier, and you do not know who is not a victim. So right now, you do not know where the virus is.
Yeah. With regards to the future war,
you will only know that if you have got mass testing. So I think the first priority of the MOH must be to bring in enough testing kits so that and make it affordable. I think in some countries it's free of charge. In Korea, it's free of charge.
Yeah.
So that we know whether we are affected or not.
Well, what I meant was that retailers right now, and maybe even the next few months, will probably not have much finances potentially to be able to handle their staff, much less a future going forward with regards to their businesses. So in the immediate space, you would need maybe a direct financial assistance to support payment or even the pay of payments. And in future, what is something that the government can help retailers do so that they can...
Working capital loans.
Okay, all right.
Working capital loans on easy terms.
All right, okay, done. And who are the people who will thrive? Who are not just the retailers, but the general people who will thrive in COVID? I like what you're talking about with regards to 70% of hard work, strategy, so on and so forth. And 30% of this will be luck.
Yeah.
In a space that is uncontrollable, we can't even see what is going to be happening at the bend. You were talking a little bit about what you can be doing. So would you like to share a little bit about your statistical claim?
So there is a very famous Hokkien song. It goes like this. Chit hun kao pa pian. Chit hun kao pa pian means 70% depends on your hard work. Sa hun ti tu pian. 30% is determined by heaven.
By heaven?
By heaven. So that means good luck. So this is where I mean, like, for example, this present government is extremely unlucky. The moment they came into office, they are hit with the COVID-19 crisis. I mean, this is really bad luck, you know, if you want to talk about the overall picture. But this is one of the examples of, you know, luck having an important role to play, you know, in your human enterprise. So, I mean, amongst the business community, we recognize this. No matter how hard you work, no matter how much you put in, but 70% only is your hard work. Remember, 30% is determined by heaven. So it all depends on good luck. So, for example, when I took over my businesses, there was no COVID-19. There was no world trade war. There was a very long period of, you know, stability, you know, and we made good. We had smooth business and everything was going all right and hunky-dory. And then we could go with your father to, you know, overseas trips and visit stores and do store inspections. And we went to London, we went to San Francisco, you know. I mean, we missed him, you know, we asked him to come and join us in New York, but then I think he had to attend a wedding in India, so he couldn't make it.
So what are you trying to say about the heavens? Can you negotiate with the heavens? Can you lure them? Can you, you know, what can you do when, you know, luck is not on your side? And
you know where you're coming from. Your father always said, I probably made good in Complex Sogo because I changed my front door from facing Jalan Tongkok Draman to facing Jalan Laut, because there is a well-established feng shui principle. You know, feng shui means wind and water, where you actually must face your front door to water. So Sungai Gombak was on the other side. So I actually changed our front door facing Sungai Gombak. And since then, we've been having very good business. So believe it or not, but, you know, those are feng shui principles.
And you become a believer of, would you say that feng shui is about flow or energy or?
It is flow, it's energy, is called qi. And it is not only the business community in Malaysia, even the Hong Kong Shanghai Bank in Hong Kong, they have got two lion heads that are actually sitting at the ground level of the bank. But guess what? On the ground level, there are no offices. They've actually elevated the offices to the first floor because those two lions are, in feng shui terms, not compatible with a business entity. It's only good for emperors and it's good for temples. So what they did was they elevated Hong Kong Shanghai Bank front door offices to the first floor, leaving the entire ground floor empty.
I see. So I guess in these times, not only psychologists, but maybe some feng shui people can help us a little bit with understanding flow and energy. And, you know, I hope nobody's really laughing too much about it. But I mean, think about the number of times you have decided to turn your back against somebody because you felt that there were bad energy vibes from the person.
Oh.
So there are so many times that viscerally, like I'm going to use your words all the time, that your body is telling you that the energy is not working out for you in this method or format. And it's the same thing with inanimate objects or buildings or structures or homes, whatever not. And so your changing of the door really worked. And a long time ago, I was supporting Resorts World in Singapore with regards to training and developing employees who are going through psychological distress from having to deal with gamblers and high-profile people and stuff like that. And they took me through a whole tour of inside of the casino, and they explained to me all the things that they had done to comply with qi and the laws, principles of feng shui, and I was thoroughly impressed. And I guess that's why the house always wins. The house always wins.
In modern production engineering terms, it's called ergonomics.
Wow.
Workflow systems. What is the most efficient way of production that is compatible with the human condition? It is actually a science. It's called ergonomics. In a way, these are also feng shui principles. For example, it's very simple. I mean, you do not want to locate your house at the confluence of a river because it will flood. So a feng shui principle, you do not want to locate your house at the confluence of a river.
Right.
Because in the rainy season, that place will flood.
Right.
Simple, very simple. So the feng shui principle is you locate your house on top of a hill overlooking water. So it's commonsensical and it's ergonomical.
Right. Okay. So are there ways that we can, with regards to luck, are we ways that we can negotiate with the heavens or, back and plead or take a loan? How do we do this with the heavens?
I think we all come from different cultural beliefs. I mean, Malaysia is a tapestry of, many communities, having many different cultural beliefs, having very, very many different religious and spiritual beliefs. But the important thing is that whatever you believe in, so long as it supports you psychologically and you have the courage to go forward, that's the most important thing.
You're so wise. That was well said.
I'm not wise.
Yes.
I'm only reflecting what your father said.
In psychology, we call it empowering or disempowering. So basically, whatever you're doing, whatever you believe in it, is it empowering you or is it disempowering you? And that's all that matters. You don't have to worry about too much of science because science hasn't yet proven everything. You don't have to worry too much about the alternatives, which is religion
and this is actually the mental paralysis of our current generation. Because we have so much information, you are overwhelmed. You have all that information and you do not know how to make a wise decision arising from all that information.
Agreed.
So at the end of the day, many of us are paralyzed.
Yes.
So that is where all those health workers that you're talking about, the psychologists that I've mentioned, are necessary to actually help people to navigate and to actually disregard the mass of information that we have and just focus on what you want to do and how the best way to do it.
Yeah, and I guess what matters the most is
mental health.
Yeah, and with the last 5 minutes, I want to also commit all our friends who have tuned in. So I'm not 100% sure what your names are because you actually have to click on StreamYard being able to access your name. So if you haven't done that, please do that. But otherwise, I'll just share some general comments. So one of our friends is saying the only way we can sustain life on this planet is through human relations, like you have said. The people. He says, well said, Datuk. Jack Ma too said that the essential skill to succeed in life is being able to work with people well. So I guess you are, Jack Ma and Datuk Andrew now same.
No. I'm just a humble lawyer. I learned all this while doing my lawyering work.
Yeah, and someone else is asking, what is the biggest lesson that COVID-19 has taught you?
Basically, death is a non-event.
Please share that, because that has changed the way that I'm going to look at everything now. Because for me, death was the only guarantee, so that's the thing I look at.
Indeed. So death is just the end of days. And if you've lived long enough, you've actually experienced your core family members dying, you've seen friends die, you've seen teachers die, you've seen a lot of people die. And basically, it's a non-event. Because at the end of the day, it's just saying goodbye. But life is about living. And what you do at this point in time now, what I'm doing, talking to a beautiful lady, Hetang Toshi, is actually living. That is what we should focus on. Death is just a necessary termination of days. It's a non-event. But people get so stressed out about dying, death, and what happens after death. It is actually not worth the effort. So I've come to the conclusion, and I'm not that young anymore, that death is actually a non-event. Living is what's important. I hope that helps your audience with their mental happiness.
Yes, I'm sure. And maybe would you like to share, as we have just a couple more minutes left, one or two things, maybe the comfort, so something that words or wisdom that somebody has told you that keeps you comfort up until today, or an advice that you'd like to share with our friends before you leave?
I think all of us have our own backgrounds, and all of us are comforted and supported by your own personal experiences. But I'm comforted by this. A lot of people now question whether religion is relevant, whether spiritual beliefs are relevant. But I come to a very practical conclusion. And because I was there when my late father passed away, and I could see that he was afraid, and that he was, of course, he doesn't want to die, but he was going and he was afraid. So I've come to the conclusion that whatever you believe in, please carry on believing it, because at the moment of death, in Latin is called in extremis. The moment before that is called in articulo mortis, which is just the moment before you die. At that point in time, you want to be holding on to your religious and spiritual belief and say to yourself that you're going to a better place. That will be, at the end of the day, a fantastic finale to your life. Remember, in articulo mortis.
In articulo mortis.
In articulo mortis. Just the moment before you die. What will you be thinking? If you're thinking, I had a lousy life, to me, that's eternal hell. But if, say, for example, you feel that I've lived a fantastic life, I've had, all the very best friends, all the very best in this world, and I can go there with a happy heart. And of course, if you're religious, I'm going to heaven, I'm going to see, Heavenly Father, and so on and so forth. You will be in heaven.
You have so many amazing career opportunities. Priest, yes. President of Mental Health Association, and a public speaker like Jack.
Father Julian, the Archbishop of KL, is actually a friend. So he says, "Hey Andrew, you talk like a priest." I said, "No, Father, I just read a lot."
Yeah, sorry? And very articulate as well. You've really made my heart full. Like, I can understand things that I didn't understand before, or like you say, the point of contemplation about religion versus spirituality or practical way of life. I've got a couple of questions. I want to, I really deserve. I mean, the people who are coming in and watching obviously deserve to have themselves heard. So I will just try to focus on that one now. Datuk, when do you foresee the retail industry bouncing back from COVID-19 Malaysia? From one of our Facebook friends.
I hope as soon as possible, but I don't see it coming back to normality until a vaccine is now created to fight COVID-19. Because people will not be comfortable or will not feel safe coming out until the vaccine is widely available.
Yeah. And, if I can just, make an assumption over here, the person who's asking, I can't really see your name yet, but I hope you don't mind me just probing a little bit more. I don't think it's necessarily sometimes that you need to know when something is going to bounce back. There's obviously a certain fear inside this person as well. Would you like to just share something to comfort this person?
The medical experts say that the vaccine will be available by end of 2020 or the beginning of 2021. I think mass trials are happening now, but I think always prepare for the worst. You prepare yourself for the worst and you hope for the best.
Right.
But
okay.
I think realistically, we're looking at 2021. First quarter or second quarter, before all this COVID-19 fears have been allayed and people come back to normalcy.
Right. Okay. So in essence, focus on something that is valuable for you and prepare for the worst and just focus on what could be valuable for you. Another one is, what would the buying patterns of Malaysian consumers be after COVID-19 with the stimulus package, which has benefited almost all B40 groups?
I think Malaysians are great savers. We actually save about 50% of our income on
really?
This is what the Bank Negara statistics tells us.
According to BPF, if I'm not wrong, a majority of us will not be able to sustain ourselves after 2 years into retirement. So
but that's because of inflation and that's because of other reasons. But as a population, we save much more than, say, Europeans or say the Americans. But the point is, what is the buying pattern after COVID-19? I think immediately after COVID-19, people will not be spending. They will actually prefer to save whatever subsidies or whatever free cash that they may have, because they are not yet sure what is going to happen in the future. Again, until the vaccine is widely available, until COVID-19 is a resolved situation, I don't see the buying pattern being very strong. But I think what your audience wanted to know is, what is the distribution between brick and mortar sales and the distribution of e-commerce sales? I think in a summer banned country like Malaysia, Florida, California, where we have constant summer all around, I think people want to go out. So there will be a role for brick and mortar, but it must be a brick and mortar presence which has lifestyle activities, which is actually like a hub of pedestrian flow and a transport hub and things like that. Because the suburban malls will suffer terribly with the onset of online commerce.
Yeah, and maybe one last question. Also, a friend is saying, great insights from you. One last question before we go. What are three things that you are doing now to prepare for the current situation as well as the future?
I'm in communication with my directors, my senior managers, my Sugorians, my Gamarians, all the time to encourage them, and especially the frontline ones who are actually working at the supermarket level every day. So we make sure that they have their face masks, their gloves, we have sanitizers, and we do social distancing. So that the most important thing now is to protect our frontline workers. The second thing that we are doing is we are rationalizing our cash reserves. So we have to manage our money very carefully going forward, because I anticipate at least 1 year of difficult times, because sales will not be as robust as previously. And then the third thing, of course, is we are lobbying government to help them understand, because a lot of these ministers, they are new. They are new to their roles. They're all, with great personal intentions to help, but they don't know how to apply the medicine according to the sickness. So we are working with them. We are lobbying them. We are telling them what should be done. I hope they understand. However, I think sometimes they understand, but they don't have the financial wherewithal to help the Malaysian rakyat. That is the problem at this point in time.
Right. I have asked for 30 minutes of your time. You have
Yes.
been kind enough to extend it by 34 minutes extra.
Wonderful. Because we're all on MCO. I'd rather be talking to you than watching TV.
I would definitely say I'm one of those that have that 30% luck on my side, because it's just been one of the most enjoyable times having had a chat with so many of you that otherwise would be so difficult to get to. So I'm really grateful for that opportunity. Thank you so
You're most
much.
welcome. Thank you for having me,
I hope you
Hital.
had a wonderful time as well.
Yes. Almost regards to your father. Yes.
Oh,
And to your
definitely.
brother.
And to all the people viewing you as well. This is not just about one man. Thank you so much, and wishing you all the very best. Going forward, please feel free to reach out if, on our side, we can offer any help as well.
Our current tagline is, please stay safe and stay healthy.
All right, we will do that. Thank you so much, and you too. All the best with you. Thank you again.
Okay.
Okay, bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye.